So we're very pleased to have with us for our monthly meditation today, my friend and colleague, Rabbi Susan Leider, who is Senior Rabbi at Congregation Kol Shafar. She's also on our Marin Interfaith Council Board of Directors. We also work closely in the Marin Organizing Committee. We're also part of a Pastor's Rabbi group, so I get to see Rabbi Leider many times, and I'm so grateful for every interaction, and not only deeply respect the work that she does in our community, but also the spiritual depth that she brings to all of our gatherings and just by her presence. So very excited to have her with us today. And I'm glad that all of you are here with us today. And welcome, Rabbi Leider. Thank you for leading us in our meditation tonight, Finding Resiliency in Difficult Times.
So thank you, Scott. It's so wonderful to be here this evening. The sun coming through my window, headed into the evening hours, and with some familiar faces and some new faces and names and phone numbers that we see on the screen tonight. So whatever circumstances brought you to this moment to be able to be in this virtual community, for that I am grateful, and hope that our time together allows you to release whatever it is that you were engaged in, struggling with, enjoying prior to our being together tonight. And I'm reminded as we delve into this topic of resiliency, a multifaceted topic, I have Janice to thank for this, who, kind of heightened my awareness tonight as I joined our virtual meditation space. I've had my own kind of lessons and personal lessons in resiliency over these past weeks, having come down with a sudden and apparently out of the blue case of sciatica. And as Janice reminded me, that when you're in the middle of something like this, you want to say to yourself, this too shall pass, but it is hard to see that when you're in the middle of it. So I'm here to attest that, in the face of that personal physical suffering and pain, it is hard to see what things can look like when, are you going to come out on the other side? So I sit here on my meditation cushion tonight with great gratitude, because if you had told me 3 weeks ago that I'd be sitting on a meditation cushion and not wincing and having my face balled up in some kind of expression of pain, I would have said you were crazy. But here I am on this July evening, with gratitude for being able to be here. So as we get settled in whatever position you're in tonight, and you can shift those positions, I'm a big believer in a flexible approach to meditation, right? So there's, from my perspective, I guess I'd say there's no virtue in holding any kind of position that feels uncomfortable or that's compromising your body. And that if you find that through the course of my teaching or leading meditation that you need to shift into some different position, whether that's standing, sitting, lying down, whatever it is, walking, that you should do that, and that is considered, in my mind, listening to your body and being attentive to what your needs are at that time. Again, something even brought home to me even more as and I may stand up at some point too, but for now, it's all good. So what does it mean to be resilient? So one of my guides in considering this question, and it might be an unlikely source, is the rich wisdom of the Hebrew language, and not even a particular text or a particular teaching at this moment. Just literally, I asked myself, what is the word in Hebrew for this value that I'm trying to explore or learn more about in my body and my heart and my soul? And so the Hebrew language, millennia old language, is so rich and so multi-layered. It's also a language that is extremely economical. And in fact, when you look at, if you take a Hebrew-only text in one hand and you look at its English translation in another, you'll notice that in most cases, the English book is this thick and the Hebrew book is this thick because the Hebrew language is constructed of many, many words that are based on 3-letter roots. And so what you get when you go into this very dense and compact language is you get a multifaceted look into the root, which can be made manifest into many different words. But it always goes back to that core kernel of meaning, which can unlock new meaning for us, which I think is very unique to this language. So maybe before we look at the word resilience, we might want to look at, and we'll get back to the Hebrew in a minute, we might want to look at what are some of its opposites. What are some of the opposites or contrary values to resilience? We might even want to call them sabotaging forces if we want to be dramatic, right? What are the things that we might start out the day saying, I'm in it to be resilient and I'm going to be, I'm going to set my mind to this is going to be my kavanah, this is going to be my intent for how I'm going to live today. And then things come up that can kind of pull us off track or sabotage us. Fear, perhaps. Anxiety. So it turns out that one of the words in Hebrew for fear or anxiety is cherda. But this word, when you look and plumb the 3-letter root of the word, it also connotes trembling. And this made me think of the kind of trembling that happens when you're holding or being held by fear and you're trying not to tremble, but then that makes you tremble even more because you're trying to control it. And that's what many of us are feeling right now. We're watching those COVID numbers go up across our nation and across our county. And we carry with us the knowledge that so many are sick and that those we know are sick. Even today, in this moment, I know personally of 3 more people who are sick, 3 more people that I know of now that I didn't know about at 9 o'clock this morning. And there are so many other things going on in our country and in our world. Systemic racism, poverty, hunger. There's so much to make us tremble, even as we try so hard not to. But the Hebrew word for resilience is kafitzut. And this word comes from the root kafatz, which means to jump. So you think about this and going deep into the essence of the root, resilience can be seen on the other end of the spectrum from this fearful trembling that we try to suppress. And instead, when we encounter the difficulties and the fear, we can respond with elasticity, with flexibility, with the ability to spring from one place to the next, to be pliable and responsive. Okay, sure, sounds so easy, but how do we actually do this? So for me, one of the greatest answers lies within the breath. Second by second, moment by moment, we inhale and exhale, consciously and unconsciously. But the breath is so much more than the flow of oxygen. It's literally the pathway to resilience. The breath can help us from becoming hardened and stiffened and resistant to what is around us. And instead, it can make us have the ability to bounce back, to be elastic, just as our diaphragm descends down into our body and then rises up again to lift that exhalation out of our bodies. We have this curious phrase in English, to take a breath. You've heard it a million times. Take a deep breath. But we actually can't and don't take a breath. Rather, the breath breathes us. The inspiration for this, and that's another great word related to breath, because spirare in Latin means breath. So another inspiration for this idea of being breathed, as it were, comes in the Jewish tradition from the book of Genesis. When we read one of two different creation stories there. So in the book of Genesis, we read that the Holy One blew into the nostrils of the first human being the breath of life, nishmat chaim. Another just a lovely thing in Hebrew back to our roots is that neshama, the Hebrew word for soul, is also related to neshima, the Hebrew word for breath. So our soul is our breath is our soul. And in this story from the book of Genesis, the first figurative human beings are being breathed, as it were, breathed into. We don't really breathe, but we are breathed. The divine formed the human from the dust of the earth. God, this divine force in the universe, blew into the nostrils of the first human being. So in Judaism, this divine creation story is not meant to be taken literally, but figuratively and mystically. It teaches us so much. Our bodies miraculously have systems that allow us to receive and release, to take in oxygen and to release carbon dioxide. We're equipped with the ability to receive something and then to change it into something useful for others. And these systems are a reminder of our true interdependence. Breathe me into life. My breath is the out-breath of the trees. My out-breath is what the trees need. Or, in the words of Langston Hughes, the breath of the rose is what we need. In his poem entitled The Breath of the Rose, he writes, "Love is like dew on lilacs at dawn. Comes the swift sun and the dew is gone. Love is like the starlight in the sky at morn, starlight that dies when day is born. Love is like perfume in the heart of a rose. The flower withers, the perfume goes. Love is no more than the breath of a rose. No more than the breath of a rose." In these days, when we don masks to venture out into the world, we need now more than ever to be breathed. To realize that air is going to come into our bodies naturally, if only we will let it. That mask might feel like it's keeping that air out, but it's not so. It can't keep the air out, and it can't keep the love out. James Baldwin reminds us that love, like breath, is always with us. And I share with you something beautiful that he wrote about this. Love takes off the masks that we fear we cannot live without and know we cannot live within. I use the word love here, not merely in the personal sense, but as a state of being, a state of grace, not in the infantile American sense of being made happy, but in the tough and universal sense of quest and daring and growth. That is resilience. That is elasticity. That is love. And that is breath. And so now, as we have an opportunity to get intimate with our breath, to rediscover our breath, to reconnect to love, to let ourselves be breathed or breathed, and just let it come in, not feel that we have to take a deep breath or work hard to make that diaphragm go down. It will. I invite you to, again, adjust whatever position you need to in your body, and to think about your spine being like Jacob's ladder that we read about also in the Torah, in the Jewish Bible, or perhaps it's a part of your faith tradition too. Jacob's ladder was unique in the sense that it was grounded into the earth, and it was also lifting up to the heavens. So our spine can be like that too, both grounded, whether it's in a cushion or a chair or through our feet if we're standing, or perhaps if we're lying down, through feeling our whole back on the bed, on the floor, on the carpet, and our head lifting Shemaima, as we say, up toward the heavens, getting longer. In these days, we can think of our Jacob's ladder, our spine, being like an emergency ladder, right? So many of us feel like we're dealing with emergencies and trying to comfort people and deal with anxiety and all kinds of things. But that Jacob's ladder, just like an emergency ladder, is flexible. It's not stiff and fixed, but it can flow and take different positions. So I invite you to keep that in mind as we, if it's comfortable for you to close your eyes. You can do that. You can leave them open. And I'm going to guide us in with just a little bit of guided meditation, and then we'll have some time of quiet as well. And probably be about maybe 15 minutes of silent meditation before we break for questions and reflection as a community together. So again, I invite you, if you're comfortable doing so, to close your eyes. You're also welcome to turn off your video if you would like to do that, or if you would like to leave your video on to be able to feel, perhaps even peek and see this community, this meditating community gathered together. And see what happens if you think of this metaphor, this really physical reality of being breathed. Feeling what it's like if you sense that expansion around the waistline, maybe through the back. Don't force it, just sensing it to see what's there. To see what parts of your body might be trembling, might be feeling held or holding back maybe. And there's no instruction to release that, just to see that, just to feel that, just to heighten your awareness of it and name it, notice it. Oh, that's what's going on in that rib cage today. Or, oh, that's what's going on with that part of my neck. Interesting. What happens if I allow that to be breathed? To allow that emergency ladder of a spine to be unfurled, to grow up toward the sky and yet be touching the ground at the same time. To even think about, are you hearing something right now? Maybe even your heartbeat. The heart being a part of feeding a life force out into the world. We'll continue now on our own for about 15 minutes. Meditation of anchoring ourselves in this idea of being breathed. May we be like the reed that sways in the wind, the strongest, one of the strongest plants of all. Flexible, elastic, yielding at times. And may we all be blessed with renewed resilience in these days. Thank you.